Why do we need a tribute to fallen workers? Well, unfortunately, people are injured and killed on the job. So we do need a tribute. We do need to remind ourselves it does happen, and then it can happen, and it can happen in the blink of an eye.
I think it's really important that we have a tribute to fallen workers to remind people, including the general public, that people are still being killed on our job sites and injured and having occupational diseases that are changing their lives forever.
It's very much a respect thing for those that have unfortunately died on the job, the impact that it's had on families, their co-workers and the community as a whole. I think it's really imperative that they get recognition for that. It's very sad, and I think it's really important that we all recognize that and think, can we work safer and hopefully reduce those numbers moving forward.
Where did the project originate from? That's kind of a tough question. I think it might have actually originated maybe 3 or even 4 years ago.
I think it was just collectively thought out amongst the group of the Parkland Regional Safety Committee. I think it just kind of took on a life from its own.
The project originated at Steps for Life Walk about 3 years ago, where we were decorating the fallen worker tree. And some people were walking by asking us why we were putting ribbons on the tree, and we explained it was the fallen worker tree, and these were park users that had used the park for years and didn't know that tree was the fallen worker tree. And the memorial rock was underneath the tree, and the tree had grown over it, so unless you were specifically looking for it, you couldn't find it.
There was a memorial stone at Bower Ponds, and we looked at it and we looked at its location and how the tree that had been planted had grown over top of it, and kind of from there it kind of grew into a, well, you know, they have other memorials like in Calgary and Medicine Hat and Edmonton, and maybe we should do something here in Red Deer. And I think it was like it's almost like a 3 or 4 year kind of a project, which really got going about 2 years ago.
So I approached Ryan Hawley, who was the chairperson of Parkland Regional Safety Committee, and said, I think we can do something better and we should do something better. What are your thoughts? And he thought that was a great idea and a project we should approach the committee with to see if they were interested in taking it on. So at one of our committee meetings, we asked the committee, and it was basically an overall favor to proceed with forming a subcommittee for the Fallen Worker Tribute.
Our committee worked hard to just discuss it and formed a subcommittee which had a range of people from the Parkland Regional Safety Committee as members, and we met and we discussed and we talked about, okay, what would it look like, and we battered around some ideas, and we talked about what's in Calgary and we talked about what's in Medicine Hat, and came up with some hey, brainstorming on the whiteboard, and then okay, well, hey, we could do a pergola, yeah, okay, and then we could make it round, and it's kind of like the emblem for the day of mourning, and oh yeah, well, how would we do that, and oh, well, who's going to pay for it? And so then we'll have to talk with can we go back and can we do some fundraising, or can we get donations, or will people volunteer, and there was a huge effort among everybody in the committee to try and get this moving forward.
With that project in mind, we approached the city, and I was able to talk to Buck Buchanan, who is a city councillor with the city of Red Deer, and he was just an asset on guiding us on how to properly approach it. He hooked me up with Trevor Poth, who's the park superintendent with the city of Red Deer, and Trevor was just absolutely fantastic. He went and met our committee out in Bower Ponds, and we walked around to a whole bunch of available locations. He also discussed some other locations available within the city so that as a committee we could make the best choice. We decided to pick the Bower Ponds location right beside the Bower Pond stage because of the visibility and the fact that Steps for Life did their walk there every year in May. So it would be just a perfect location and reminder for people of what the Fallen Worker Tribute is and how important it is to us.
And the location that we've selected, I think, is very appropriate for a number of reasons. Number one, the park setting with the benches and the picnic table. It's very a nice place to go and reflect on what's happened in the workplace. The other thing is that the park is very popular, and when people go walking by the tribute, and they can go have a rest and look at the pond, they'll also see the sign, and then maybe that might spur them to ask themselves some questions about what is a fallen worker, and why do we have a fallen worker, and what is Steps for Life, and what is the National Day of Mourning. And hopefully it's going to impact more people as they walk by, just as they're enjoying the park, and give them maybe a moment to reflect on what can and does happen in the workplace, unfortunately.
It's a nice tribute place to sit down, have a picnic, rest, reflect. It also gives the family a nice place that's dedicated to their lost loved ones, co-workers, and friends.
Just had a vision what we wanted to see and kind of just pushed it through, and eventually we got to a stage where the paper version of it became an actual reality. An actual structure on a site, and it's very impressed at how it turned out in the end. A lot of hard work and dedication, and it turned out fantastic in my opinion.
My goal is, when people see this tribute for the first time, is that they just stop and think and just remember and realize how important it is to have a workplace that you can go to and be safe, and for having an employer that actually has the importance and realizes the importance of having safety within the workplace, because any death is too many, any injuries are too many, and the occupational diseases have to stop. They're so preventable. I just think that anybody who stops and sees it, I hope they just stop and think about it.
I think the location in the park, and with the families that'll go through the park and they'll pop by, and perhaps the child will say, "Hey mom, hey dad, what's this all about?" And then mom and dad are going to have to give it some reflection and thought about what can possibly happen, and how tragic it really is, and explain that to their sons and daughters.
We don't really think about what happens on job sites, for the simple fact that we go to work, we do our thing, we go home at the end of the day, and 2 weeks later, a month later, we collect a check and do it all over again. I think it's really important that not all of us were lucky enough to come home at the end of the day.
Number one, we have to thank the Parkland Regional Safety Committee and the Alberta Construction Safety Association for their support in this undertaking, because they support us, and then the committee itself and the subcommittee and all the members on the subcommittee, they really worked very hard. And there's another member of the committee that we have to take our hats off to, and that's Trina Dixon. She really kept us on track, and kept pushing this project forward, and without her initiative, we wouldn't be where we are today. So hats off to Trina as well.
The one I would like to thank was Brian Armstrong. He was instrumental in this. He did a fantastic job. It would have been really hard to get this thing completed in the fashion it did. He was very easy to work with, very receptive to ideas, and he made things happen. He did a great job. Really impressed.
I'd like to really thank the City of Red Deer for their support, from starting with Buck Buchanan, who's a city councillor, to Trevor Poff, the park superintendent, to our engineer, Wayne Carey, who come on board at the early stages to help us design the project, to Brian Armstrong with Tectonic Developments, who just took on the project and just made it happen. He worked very closely with the engineer and just had it organized just to the T, so when we went out with our volunteers, that it just went so well. I'd also like to thank the committee members. Everybody put in a lot of effort and time to make this happen and be successful, volunteering their weekend to come out, and even the workers who came out just to help move mulch around and dig a little bit, that weren't involved in the committee at all, but just thought it was a good project to support and it was the right thing to do.